And as winter approaches, numbers of COVID cases in the Northeast are picking up once again, raising the question of exactly where we stand in the Delta wave. Joining us right now is Dr. Scott Gottlieb. He's former FDA commissioner and a CNBC contributor who also serves on the boards of both Pfizer and Illumina. And Scott, let's talk a little bit about this. You had an interesting tweet last night just pointing out that numbers have started to creep back up, at least in New York City and in the Northeast. And that raises a lot of questions about what happens as the weather gets colder.
Yeah, look, if you look at this coronavirus as it's spread across the United States in these successive waves, there's been about maybe 10 different regions of the country that have been affected at different points in time. The South clearly has had their Delta wave. The Pacific Northwest cases are coming down. The Plain States, you see cases coming down. The Mountain States are probably in the thick of their wave right now. California cases are picking up. That's been its own region. The Mid-Atlantic cases have not picked up yet. In the tri-state region, you're starting to see cases pick up a little. Where cases are picking up a lot right now is in the north, where people are heading indoors. It's getting cold. States like Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, parts of New England. And there's a question what's going to happen here in the tri-state region. We've talked about that on this show. So Delta is not done. We're in the late innings of this Delta wave. The South, clearly, prevalence is very low right now. And you see cases coming down in other parts of the country that were hit early, like the Pacific Northwest. But there are parts of the country that have not had their Delta wave yet. And I think they're still going to have cases pick up. Certainly the Great Lakes region in New England. I think one of the question marks is, will you see a pickup in cases in the tri-state region, or is our high vaccination rates and the high rates of prior infection that we have going to make us somewhat impervious? I don't think we're impervious. I don't think we're going to see anything in this region like what we've seen in the South, though.
And then you have children who, ages 5 to 11, are now eligible for the shot. And from what I've seen this week, it looks like almost 1 million children have already signed up, or have already been signed up and gotten that shot. What does that tell you in terms of that sort of uptake rate?
Yeah, probably more than that. I talked to some executives at CVS last night. Their utilization right now in terms of the uptake of the vaccine for 5 to 11 is running 54% ahead of where they were at a comparable period when they rolled out the 12 to 16 vaccine. So it looks like their uptake is very brisk. Now, some of that is pent-up demand, but you're seeing a lot of appointments get filled. They're now booked up. A lot of the pharmacies and the pediatricians' offices are booked up out a few weeks. I think uptake's going to be pretty good here. There was a presumption that uptake would be less in the 5 to 11 age group than it's been the 12 to 16 age group. And we've seen about 50% of kids age 12 to 16 get vaccinated who are eligible. I think that uptake in 5 to 11 will be comparable and maybe up some. I think parents are reassured by the lower dose. And I also think the fact that it's been distributed aggressively through pediatricians' offices is going to provide more points of contact to get the vaccine more easily for kids ages 5 to 11.
You know, we're just looking at some shots being given to children there, and the one kid who got it and kind of gave a high five. Scott, you said about a week ago, I think it was a week ago today, that we could be looking at the end of this. We could be looking at getting to a point where this is really endemic, life can go back to normal because of all these new treatments that are out there, including the new pills from Merck and from Pfizer. How long until that kind of is the reality? How long before that's on the market and it's plenty and there's available and people don't have to worry? Are we talking about a few more months before we get there?
Probably the first quarter of 2022 before these drugs are widely available, more accessible. Look, I think we are looking at the end of the pandemic, but that doesn't mean it's going to end tomorrow. We still have to get through this Delta wave. I've always thought that this Delta wave is going to be the last major surge of infection. It's impacted many parts of the country, but not every part of the country, and people aren't going to escape Delta. It's probably going to end up getting into most parts of the country. But I think as we get into January, this Delta wave will have run its course. Prevalence will start to decline dramatically like we've seen in the South, and we'll get on the other side of this. The reason why this may get extended a little bit is because we are entering the holiday season. We know that's going to cause cases to creep up. And as things get better, things will get worse. I mean, what's going to happen is things will get better. People will go out more and socialize, and then that's going to cause infections to bounce up like we see in the UK. The UK improved. They reopened. It's life back to normal largely in the UK. And then they had a big surge of infection. Now, that surge is abating, but they did have one last surge of infection because people started to interact more. So you're going to see something similar here, and that's going to bump up right against the holidays and the cold weather when people move indoors. I will say, though, if you look at where we are right now relative to where we were last year at the same time, we are in better shape right now, and that's with a more contagious variant. Remember, in November of last year, we were dealing with the old Wuhan variant. Now we're dealing with a much more contagious variant in this Delta variant, and we're still at a lower level of overall cases around the country than we were a year ago. So I don't think things are in terrible shape right now, but there are parts of the country that are going to have Delta unfortunately spread very briskly through those regions, and it's particularly the northern states.